What are you glad you tried once but will absolutely never do again? Scuba diving. Not juicy, but the thing was, I was in Southeast Asia, Philippines specifically, and I have a pacemaker. The opportunity came up and I wanted to try it, but had no way of contacting my cardiologist and getting a response in time to make sure that it was even an option for me. I tried to Google it, but the classic internet gave me a whole mixed bag of information, so I decided to risk it and give it a go. And it was magical. I saw corals and schools of fish. I even saw an octopus. The guy took me pretty deep. Anyway, next time I had an appointment with my doctor, I casually asked him if scuba diving was an option for me, and he said, technically yes, but my device can't take very much pressure, so they generally recommended snorkeling. He, knowing me well, asked me if I did it already and how far down I went. He was appalled when I told him. So, glad I took the risk because if I had gone through the proper channels, I would have missed out on an amazing experience, and now I know I will never get to do it again, so I am glad I did it. Well, half of the fun things I've done in my life are because I do them before gathering more information that would otherwise change my mind, so sometimes it truly is bliss to be ignorant. Story 2. Watch the New Year's Eve countdown in the middle of Times Square. 13 hours of standing still in the cold, not being able to leave our area, listening to the performers practice bits and pieces of their sets for TV, being surrounded by screaming and yelling people all around you for hours and hours, not being able to walk because of standing still for so long. It was a great experience, but I don't want or need to do it again. Now watching the New Year's Eve countdown on TV every year makes it more meaningful since I was there. Story 3. A track day in my own car. Did it last year. I drive a reasonably quick car, a Golf R, and have always fancied doing a track day. My friends and family clubbed together for my 40th and bought me a day at an open track event at Silverstone GP Circuit. I enjoyed it a lot. It was great to fully open the taps and drive around an iconic track as much as I liked, but I don't think I'd like to do it again. First off, even though my car isn't slow by any means, most of what I was driving with were supercars, which I was extremely paranoid about crashing into, despite having insurance. I spent most of the day looking in the rearview mirror and getting out of the way of Porsches, Aston Martins, and such. Worse was the Caterhams, which are a very lightweight track-focused car, which meant they could brake a lot later and corner a lot faster than me, so it seemed like every other corner I had one up my exhaust pipe waiting to get past. Aside from that, I was also worried about the amount of wear and tear I was causing to my car, which is effectively a fast road car not best suited for track driving. The engine was getting pushed very hard, as were the tires and brakes. The car held up fine and it sailed through its MOT test a month later, but if I were to make it a regular thing, I've no doubt the maintenance costs would begin to skyrocket. Story 4. Illegal substances. It was a rave in '96 in Budapest. I thought it was just good old-fashioned speed. It was really, really, really good. Hours of dancing, infinite rails, incredible DJs, groovy industrial space, but then morning came. Over the next 2 days, the count down included sleepless psychosis, and it was the worst psychological experience of my life. Tried it by accident, loved it, could feel the draw to use it again and end that pain. Never again. Story 5. Group intimacy. Sure, it may sound fun in your head, but you don't get to choose who shows up. And since everyone is there for the same reasons, people touch who they want in places all over. Sure, you can maneuver and ask certain people not to touch, and you are by no means obligated to allow activities, but it's a constant on alert type of thing. Then you find the person you like, but odds are other people are also attracted to the same person. So you are now fighting for attention and may not even be acknowledged by the object of your affection. And as you are slurping up some skin and lip contact with them, someone else may be working themselves in on you. Now you need to turn your attention to that person, wondering if you even want them to do anything. And the list of negatives goes on. Glad I did it once, quickly figured out that it was not for me, never did it again, but the curiosity is gone and I am happy about that. Story 6. Going to the isolation room in a mental hospital. No, it is not soft, white walls, it's dark and small, and you only get one mattress and a very, very thin blanket. You're not allowed to wear garments or anything that has strings. They will check everything on you before you get in there, and once you're locked up in there, everything is freaking quiet. It feels like you're stuck in your own brain, your thoughts screaming at you, and there's nothing to stop it. I screamed and smashed my head against the wall, giving me a big headache. It was horrifying. Luckily, the doctor was nice, and we agreed that I get out of there, but I need to spend the night next to the supervisor's room. This experience made me want to get better even more, because I never want to get in there ever again. Story 7. For me, it's going on cruises. I did not enjoy being seasick for a whole week, and all I wanted to do was play in the ocean. Instead, it was a giant boat flooded with entertainment, which was honestly overstimulating. The only thing I did was drink the whole time, which did not help with the seasickness. I get that it can be fun for certain people, but for me, nope. I enjoy being on land and having the ability to go into the ocean if I want to. I'm from the Midwest, so being finally so close yet so far from the ocean was an odd thing to travel for. Story 8. I had a triad once. It was not good, but I was 23 and I was curious, and it was a couple in their mid 30s who lost some spark to their marriage and they wanted a third to help them out. I said, sure, why not? And that was bad. There was a lot of no one knowing what to do and more waiting around than necessary. Those two enjoyed it, glad they liked it. I did not like it. Maybe it's better for open-minded couples more than it is for the third party, but I feel like I was too sober to truly enjoy that experience. I don't think I'll ever do something like that again, but I'm glad I got the experience. It was something on my bucket list. I was definitely experimenting with what I liked and didn't like back then. Story 9. An hour in a sensory deprivation tank, 10 out of 10. Incredible experience that I will never forget, but also one I don't think I ever want to do again. My first 20 minutes or so were terrifyingly claustrophobic, but after that it was almost transcendently peaceful. You can't hear, see, or feel anything. You're floating on hypersalinated water that is body temperature in pitch blackness. As long as you don't move around displacing the water, you really can't sense anything at all. They warned me that I might hallucinate colors or other things because this would be the first time in my entire life that my brain is receiving zero input, and that's exactly what happened. I was seeing all of these magenta and blue clouds, and at times it felt like I was flying through a nebula in space. It was beautiful when it wasn't terrifying. The terrifying bit was feeling like the tank was an inch or two from my face. The reality was that I could hold my arm fully outstretched above me and not be able to touch anything, but it was the first time I've ever felt true claustrophobia, even though it was all just, well, in my mind. I did it about 12 years ago and I still think about it all the time, especially if I'm having trouble going to sleep. Once I got past the panic of those first 20 minutes or so, it became the most peaceful thing I've ever experienced. Story 10. New Year's Eve in Times Square. My mom booked a hotel and my brothers and I were allowed to bring friends. I was in college and brought two. We went out at about 5 p.m. and quickly learned that A, that we would not get any closer than 5 blocks away, and even then would be in a crush of humanity, and B, there were 0 establishments open that served alcohol. So the whole evening was spent being sober and smashed together with millions of strangers. I mean, we did see the ball drop in person, but the whole thing was pretty much of a letdown. My daughter heard the story and decided that she wanted to go anyway. She and her friend group and my son also had fun and smartly brought their own alcohol. But they also unanimously agreed that they too are one and done. Story 11. Going to a concert. I've been to 2, second just to go with friends, and it was fine, though I can't say I enjoyed it much. The first was the worst. It was Aaron Carter, my generation's Justin Bieber, or whoever is the new Justin Bieber. IDK, I'm too old to care. And I just didn't understand why girls would want to go to a concert only to scream so loud you couldn't hear the music. I still don't, really. Spent the entire time with my fingers in my ears all scrunched up in my seat, 0 out of 10. I'm much more of a musical person. People sit down, actually listen to the music, and clap when appropriate. No random yelling or screaming, so much better. Story 12. I just spent 4 days in Paris and saw a ton of stuff there, so I guess I'm glad I went, but the city is just constantly on. People are constantly out being noisy at every hour of the day. It seemed like the neighborhood I was in actually got louder overnight somehow. At first, it seems like a great thing that the city has such a rich history and culture, but after a while, it just starts to seem ridiculous, like something absurdly historical happened in every part of the city. Here's the site where St. Denis was martyred. Here's a giant cathedral that used to be a shrine to the Roman god Jupiter. This square where they now have crepe stands and a carousel is where Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette were beheaded 300 years ago. And also, there's a 3,000-year-old Egyptian obelisk because it wasn't enough for us to be surrounded by our own history from every angle. We had to start bringing in other people's history too. Here are ancient Roman ruins, here's Jim Morrison's grave and Oscar Wilde's. And also, if you look that way, there's the Eiffel Tower. It's impossible not to get overstimulated. Besides that, it's been shocking how common smoking is here. I saw a 14-year-old kid vaping the other day. I've never noticed anything like that in America. In fact, as I was leaving the first town I stayed in, there was a pro-vaping protest with people holding signs saying that vaping isn't the same as smoking. I guess arguing that they should be allowed to vape in places where they're not allowed to smoke or something. In the week I've been here, I've seen random men openly pee in public places 3 times so far in the middle of the day. Like, this is supposed to be the most romantic, refined country in the world? Based on, like, what? Whoever thinks that obviously hasn't been here. Story 13. Dune buggy riding and driving. A friend and I went to a place in the desert to rent dune buggies and follow a guide around. I was really nervous and wanted to ride with a guide and not drive my own, but she convinced me. About 5 minutes in, I hit the gas and not the brake coming down a hill, almost went off trail, bounced all around in my seat, bruised myself on the frame and steering wheel, and finally came to a stop and just sat there. The guide came back and started trying to tell me how to turn my buggy around, but I was borderline having a panic attack and interrupted with, "I really hate this." So he asked if I wanted to ride with him, and I did. Even riding with him was a little nerve-wracking, and I for sure closed my eyes a couple of times. By the end, I was having fun, and it was a cool experience to do, but I don't need to ever do it again. Story 14. I tried skydiving once. Everyone told me it would be the most freeing thing ever, that feeling of flying, of surrendering control. And for the first few seconds, it really was breathtaking. The world looked endless, silent, peaceful even. But somewhere between the rush and the silence, my brain caught up and I realized how fragile everything is, that I was just a tiny human falling through the sky, trusting a piece of fabric to save my life. When we landed, everyone was cheering. I smiled, but inside, I was shaken. I'd faced pure beauty and pure fear in the same heartbeat. I'm glad I did it once. It showed me how alive I am, but never again. Story 15. Vegas. I won a free trip. It was really fun being tempted at literally every possible moment to not be an adult and given to any vice you wanted: food, booze, gambling, intimacy, substances. Sometimes all at the same time. Waking up in the morning to play some video poker while I wait for my wife to wake up and being handed a gallon of free drinks and being intoxicated for free 99 before she's even awake was fun. Coming down to the hotel lobby and watching strippers be the first thing we see in the morning was a blast. Free food all the time, expensive and amazing food whenever we wanted it. Free hot tubs and massages. They would do anything to get you back to that ATM. Getting free lap dances if you withdrew more than $500. They had a Chippendales ATM for the male-oriented, and the hottest woman you've ever seen at the ATM would flirt with you the entire time you were in line to get out money, and again, a free lap dance if you pull out more than $500. They would literally give you booze like it was air. I was even offered access to things I definitely shouldn't have been, like by staff who were on the clock at the time. The absolute devastation that temptation delivers on people's lives is incredible. I lost $80 total for a week in Vegas and I felt sick. I watch people lose more than I make a year in 10 seconds, then do it again and again. I watch people lose six figures in 4 minutes. I watched someone get pushed into a back room and look scared for his life. I watched a marriage end at a roulette table. It's a total den of debauchery. It was fun, but I'm never ever going back. Story 16. I went to China. I was a visiting academic. Chinese coworker low-key warned me about returning. Not sure why, she waited until I was on the plane back to the US to do it, and she did it surreptitiously in a quite obscure way that was deliberate, but she did it at great risk to herself, so I take it seriously. Too bad because the country was fascinating and I'd love to return, but between that exchange and the current political climate, no thanks. Glad I was able to walk the Great Wall though. Story 17. Having kids. My wife and I wanted 2 or 3 kids. Now we are happy with 1. Her pregnancy and giving birth went great. Our son is healthy and happy. He's a loving, kind, smart, well-behaved kid. I don't have those "my kid is so bad" stories at all. We feel like we got lucky and don't want to roll the dice on more. There are some real heartbreaking stories from friends and family members. These involve their second or third child, a 3-month-old passing away from a heart condition, learning disabilities, and being bullied. It's confusing. The world is changing so fast. We don't want to live out our fears because of what happened to someone else. At the same time, we are both very happy and content with our son. But that conversation about him having a sibling so he's not alone when we are gone comes up. My wife and I both have siblings we are close to. Story 18. I trusted a bartender who bought me a cocktail before I was heading out after 2 Cosmos. I don't understand why I drank it when it didn't look like the 2 drinks that I had prior to that. I thought that it was odd that it appeared out of nowhere. When he said, "It's okay, you can drink it, I bought it for you," he wasn't behind the bar, his female coworker was. I kept saying no, I already had 2. I still question myself as to why I drank it until today. This happened 2.7 years ago. It tasted salty. I took a sip. There wasn't much, by the way. It was blue with a hint of red and a purple hue. Anyway, I don't remember anything after that. I don't remember getting into my car and driving. I became conscious after I rear-ended a car. After that, I only recall being in the backseat of a police car. The officers told me to be quiet and let them help me by talking the couple out of pressing charges on me. I went unconscious again. My son picked me up, took me to my apartment, then to the hospital. I don't recall all of the crazy things that he said that I did. I will never accept a drink or even a soda from anyone ever again. I no longer have a car. I suffered physically and neurologically. I'm still having difficulty talking verbally. Please do not trust anyone who buys you a drink. Also, make sure that you go out with a trusted friend. As for me, I will never drink again and have a hard time trusting people now. Story 19. Teaching. I love talking about science, biology especially, and when I was an undergrad, I worked at this tutoring center for underprivileged youth. The kids there were so excited to hear me talk about what I was learning in college, and we even set up a reward system. If they finished all their homework and it was correct, I would answer any science-related questions they wanted. I was showing basic trigonometry to fourth graders, just the basics for how to use sine and cosine to find side lengths, and it blew their minds. Fast forward years later, and the academic coach at my very first teaching gig sat us new teachers down during an in-service day, and he basically told us, you will be overworked, underappreciated, underpaid, and the only way to be successful and happy as a teacher is to be married to somebody who earns more than you. That year, I also learned the hard way that the dynamic between a tutor and a teacher is just so different. When you're a tutor, kids think of you like a fairy godmother, ready to help them solve their problems and make their scholastic hardships go away. When you're a teacher, you're the one piling on with hardships and adding stress to their life, so some, if not most, kids think of you as a dragon to slay, and it won't matter how much you try to lighten their workload or try to help them overcome obstacles. I got a subnote one time where a kid walked around the room giving middle fingers to everyone because that kid didn't want to work during class. Another time, a different kid yelled that they were going to get me fired because I raised my voice after that kid took something off my desk when I told them 3 times to go back to their seat. I wanted to open up a dialogue with the kids to get honest feedback on the class, how they were doing, and what they think could be different for kids in my class next year. And I had a student write in their journal how much they hate me and wish I was gone. It's really hard to want to do a job when the people you're doing it for don't want you to do that job at all. Story 20. New Year's Eve at Times Square. Legendary atmosphere, iconic moment, but holy cow, it's freezing. To get anywhere near a decent spot, you need to line up from 9 a.m. the morning before, and they slowly cage the crowds in so that people can't cut in at any moment. It's an organizational nightmare, and if you're even slightly agoraphobic, it's very uncomfortable. And get this, you better hope the pizza places are coming around selling slices, otherwise bring your own food, because there's no way to go and eat and come back. Heck, I had to convince the cops to let me out with the ability to come back because I was so desperate to use the bathroom and needed to find one. Luckily, I spoke directly to the police chief or whoever was in charge of their detail because he told me to tell police I encountered that he gave me permission by name to go to the bathroom and to cut back in line to be with my family. When the sun goes down, you're literally freezing the whole time waiting for the shows to start, and there's nowhere to sit either but the floor for the entire 15 hours. Glad I did it once as a bucket list thing, but never again. And if you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos just like this. Story 21. Hot air balloon ride. It was absolutely sublime, but one time was enough. You need to get up at the absolute crack of dawn to go. It is extremely weather dependent and you have no control over where you end up. When I went, our trip was canceled on our first attempt due to weather. Then on the second day, it was a go. We were at the site around 4 a.m. and got up in the air fairly quickly. As the morning progressed, winds picked up and we had to come down. We ended up landing in a literal mud bog. The pickup van got stuck, the balloon and basket were a mess, and it was just a disaster. We had a lunch scheduled with the balloon company after the ride, which was lovely, but we were all muddy messes. Thank goodness it was a picnic-style lunch and a beautiful day. We were all able to remain outside. My husband and I went home and took nice hot showers and a nap after that one. Absolutely no regrets. It was a once-in-a-lifetime experience, but I'm good with it being just once. Story 22. Golly, reading over some of these, I think I have a very boring life. My one thing is knitting a christening blanket. It was a commission, but I had always wanted to try something that large and intricate. It ended up being 5 feet by 5 feet Estonian lace, 2.5 miles of yarn, and 250,000 stitches. That thing took me 6 months. It looked gorgeous, too, and the mother of the baby burst into tears when she saw it. Very glad I did it, but I'm never making another one of those, even if I end up having children of my own. Story 23. Skydiving. Did it once, was terrified, but absolutely loved the moment and the flight. I was about to do it 4 more times so I could get some certification that you can jump solo anywhere, and saw it go wrong with 2 of my other course mates. They steered towards each other in the air instead of away. They both survived after removing themselves from the original chute and getting the emergency chute out. I will forever remember the fear in my instructor's eyes and body language. I decided that one time was enough. Story 24. I'm glad I went on a trip to Washington, D.C. I was in school, so I was with a lot of people and felt safe. I saw everything I could possibly want to when it comes to history, from seeing all the monuments and walking inside the Capitol building to watching the changing of the guards. It was awesome. I'm never going back though. Politics are way worse, the homelessness was heartbreaking, and the amount of walking nearly got me. Also, there's nothing really new that I know of that would make me want to go back and see it. I saw it all. Story 25. Shark Cage in Hawaii. My friend bought us some tickets, and while it was one of the coolest things I've ever done, minus being the only one to get stung from foot to face by a rogue jellyfish, I would not want to do it again. I'm usually really calm about anything, but having my snorkel tube keep getting crushed, closed by the water, or filled up, it was choppy, made me nearly panic because I couldn't breathe. Then you see the sharks. And wow, those things are amazing, but the animal in you just knows that thing can easily end you, and your body lets you know that in the most primal, inexplainable way. Story 26. Travel to Japan. I can absolutely see why people love it, and if I'm honest, I do too in my own way. But being well over 6 feet in height, I felt very encased. I hit my head numerous times, had to find awkward ways to sit on some toilets, and just felt uncomfortable. I had to line up for snacks, line up for the toilet, had to line up to have a cigarette, all in a country that is seemingly allergic to seats. The people and the country are beautiful. From a homogenous country, we were never once made to feel like we were a burden, and quite frankly, we're made to feel very welcome with people and service staff working very hard to ensure our experience was as best as possible. Given what we have done to Japan in the past, this was not only surprising, but almost heartbreaking in its own ironic way. There are a lot of reasons people should visit, and I'm glad I did, but I won't be back. Story 27. Cliff diving. I was doing some work in Hawaii. Someone told me about this diving show where Elvis had filmed Blue Hawaii. The hour-long show was great. They take an hour break before doing it all again. The area is open to the public, so anyone can go around it all, just with some care and attention when a show is on. I didn't go to the top point, but pretty high. I went to the edge and thought, I could do that. The cove they dive into was beautiful, fairly small, clear, and deep enough to safely jump into from a good height. So I just ran and jumped. Having done a fair amount of film stunts, I was used to doing crazy things. I knew what I needed to do when hitting the water from something I'd read. When I was under, I just sat there in a yoga pose, calmly grinning like a loon. It felt like ages, but was probably 10 seconds before someone grabbed me out, congratulated me for doing it, wondered why I was just sitting there, and went ballistic when I said I didn't know how to swim. I wanted to do the jump again, but they rightly told me to get lost or they'd hurt me. Too old now and still can't swim. Story 28. I actually did it twice, but shaving my head. I am a woman whose hair is her absolute quote-unquote baby, one of my main and favorite forms of self-expression, and I don't like very short hair on myself, nothing shorter than about, say, shoulder length. Yet I've shaved my head twice, once because I damaged it so badly that I really had no other choice, and once just because I was tired of the way my hair looked and wanted to start over. I don't like the way I look with a shaved head, but now I can say that I've done it. Plus, while my head was buzzed, there was little to no maintenance required, which was incredible, lol. Story 29. Parasailing. I was not properly strapped into that thing. I have no idea what certifications the people providing the experience had. I sat immobile for a good 35 minutes because the thing was loose. I came back down with cramps in both my legs. We really trust that people working on adventure sports are experts on what they do, but they really aren't. We never even ask if things are in compliance with the norms and so forth. We are lucky more accidents don't happen. Story 30. As a Boston sports fan, going to the Red Sox game the same day as the Boston Marathon. I always wanted to try it, decided to do it last year, and while the game was fun, trying to get home afterwards was a nightmare. Half of the roads were closed even to walk down. Several subway stations were closed, other subway stations were jam-packed. My friends and I waited probably 45 minutes to an hour for a subway to get on. So many people trying to jam onto the trains at each stop. It was awful. It took about 3.5 hours to get home from Fenway after the game. The trip home took more time than the game itself. Cool experience, but something I'll never do again. Story 31. Skydiving. It was a rush, a feeling not many will ever get to enjoy. Everyone's fallen from something before, but jumping out of a plane is in a league of its own. It's not like tripping off a curb or dropping from a roof where the ground rushes up right away. Up there, after you leap, there's nothing to grab onto, no frame of reference, just air tearing past you, and your stomach somewhere above your head. For a moment, you forget you're falling and you're just floating, suspended between panic and awe. Then the chute opens up, your body jolts, and it's suddenly quiet, the world slowing back down beneath your feet. We landed smooth enough, but the adrenaline hit me like a truck, and yes, I definitely threw up right after. Worth it, though, every second. Spent 2 weeks studying monkeys in the rainforest. I got to see so many amazing plants and animals, tried food I never had before, met with the native people, and learned about their culture. The stars were the most beautiful I'd ever seen. That being said, no clean clothes, air conditioning, heated water, and constant insect invasions were rough. Random animals would wake me up at night with their screams. I hiked over 5 miles a day and did a lot of scientific work. While it was rewarding, I needed to sleep hard afterwards. I also came home the sickest I've ever been in my adult life. Still a great experience, though. Story 33. As a volunteer firefighter, I once climbed onto the roof of a 2-story burning house to use an axe to cut a hole in the roof to help with venting the smoke and toxic fumes. I did this in the middle of winter. There was ice on the roof, which made it challenging to keep my footing. I was greatly relieved when the chief sounded the air horn as the most expedient means of telling everyone to get off, or in my case, off of the building due to flashover concerns. I had literally just climbed down from the roof and the second floor went woof and flames enveloped the entire floor. Story 34. I went on the half apples with my mom and hated it. I was born with hydrocephalus, so this means it is all but impossible for me to ride the normal type of amusement park rides that rely on a lot of motion because I get disoriented easily. I was momentarily amazed that I managed to do it, but terrified at the prospect of having to do it again. I scared really easily when I don't have control. This is why I don't go on roller coasters or anything like that. I even have mild panic attacks going over slopes in the road. I hate the feeling of the stomach drop. If there was one bodily feeling that I would gladly get rid of, it would be the feeling of your stomach dropping. So many of my problems with thrill rides would disappear if that was no longer an issue. I tense up and it just ruins the entire thing. When we were on the half apples, I fainted from fright. And I don't remember the rest of it. I just remember holding on to my mom for dear life because I thought I was going to pass away from all the motion going on. I do not ever want to do that again. Story 35. Hammered and hangover. I had never gotten hammered in my life. Many of my friends didn't believe me, so many tried getting me hammered by having a drinking competition, but all lost. So I was curious as to what it would be like. It wasn't until I was in my late 20s, pushing close to 30, where I had 3 glasses of red wine, 2 glasses of champagne, 3 cans of beer, 2 shots, likely 4 or 5 cocktails, 2 glasses of tequila, 3 glasses of Chinese Kaoyang liquor, of course not in that order as I don't remember anymore. And I knew I was finally about to tip over, then a friend bought me one last shot, and yep, that one did me. Not long after, I was running into the toilet, spewing and retching everywhere. Fortunately, I was still able to walk, yes, that's right, walk, home from the venue, which took me nearly 50 minutes as it was New Year's Eve in Shanghai, and I knew I would have been an easy target had I used a taxi. Next morning, I felt it the infamous day after, hangover, hell, never again. Story 36. Working a full day in retail. I worked from 7 a.m. opening time to 10 p.m. closing time. I know a lot of people may have worked longer shifts and or pulled doubles all the time, but this was pretty pointless. The guy that didn't show up didn't feel like working that Sunday, so he asked for the day off Saturday morning. My manager didn't tell me that. He just asked me if I could help out by covering this guy's shift. I said yes because I was barely a month into the job and I thought I could get some overtime. I was getting $9.50 an hour. It turned out that overtime wasn't allowed, so I ended up working shorter shifts for the following week, and I ended up with the same 30-ish hours as usual, one Sunday lost. When I asked my coworker if everything was okay since he asked for a day off with such short notice just to be nice, he straight up told me he just wanted to go out that Saturday night. I felt pretty dumb, to be honest, and never again for the 6 months I worked there did I cover for anyone else. Story 37. Being super active and invested in online friendships and drama. It was a tighter-knit server full of depressed kids and a few adults. Only one was problematic and not in a pedophile kind of way. I wasn't in a very good mindset back then and was way too invested in quote-unquote friendships with people I didn't even know the faces of. I still am in contact with some of them and I still do value one adult who was there. And I have them on Instagram, so that's why I'm glad I tried it, but never again because of all the drama with the other kids. I'm someone who loves having drama and all that because it made me feel like my life was a movie, but it was very immature and a waste of time. Story 38. Gambling. My sister took me on my 21st birthday. I lost some money, got it all back, plus a little extra. I had the dopamine high of a lifetime and new beginner's luck when I saw it. If it felt that good, it was best I never do it again. I'm a boring person who doesn't drink, smoke, or do substances. Yeah, I'm real entertaining. I did have one drink when I was 23 to shut my sister up about it. Nobody told innocent little me that you don't drink when taking analgesic, and I just had a procedure done. My esophagus and stomach hurt for a month. Never again. Story 39. Recreational dissociatives. I'm pretty sure I have a chemical susceptibility to compulsive binges of this class of substances in particular. I tried K a few weeks ago, found myself unable to stop using for more than a day or so, the exact right length to be sober during the day, and then overindulge at night. It literally felt like mind control. It is no joke. I tried to switch to higher than recommended doses of cough syrup and ended up in the hospital with a serotonin syndrome. Not pleasant. I seem to have snapped out of it and I'm not going back. This all, by the way, was after watching my roommate have her own struggle with dissociative fixation, and she also only snapped out of it when stopped by force, in her case, when more became prohibitively expensive. Thankfully, there are no noticeable withdrawals, but between the ambulance ride, which alone might bankrupt me, we'll see, an entire day in a seat collar, 2 CT scans, I'm not scared of ionizing radiation, but I don't like it either, my legs feeling shredded from being absurdly tense for a day, serotonin syndrome will do that, the non-serious but very annoying case of pneumomediastinum I ended up with, and of course seeing every single person I know who loves and cares about me terrified for my safety. I think I've had enough. I'm going to stick to stuff I can control myself with. Story 40. I got a terrible but well-paying job. When I was a kid, I didn't believe the stock advice people gave, a good paycheck doesn't make up for a bad job. My thought was, you pay me well and I'm willing to put up with quite a bit. Well, one year I got a really well-paying temporary job in my field and it was not worth it in the slightest. It was a toxic workplace filled with unfriendly people, unfulfilling work, and terrible hours. It was just awful. And I didn't respect until that moment how much a terrible job can suck your soul away. You get up in the morning, dreading going to work. You're so exhausted with all the nonsense when you get home that you just want to go to bed. Friday evening and Saturday were a break, but by the time Sunday rolled around, that creeping dread started to filter back in, as I knew I would be headed back there the next day. It just consumed my life and made me miserable until my term was up. Yet, I'm still glad that I did it because it was a negative experience I needed to have. It made me reorient some of my own personal priorities and helped me appreciate the value of a good workplace. Story 41. Slight possible major caveats on mine, but celebrations every year, New Year's Eve, Halloween, 4th of July, basically I've been there, done that multitudes of times. I have no desire to see a fireworks show, go to a random bar dressed up as whatever, or stay up late at a random bar to celebrate with people I don't care about. They were fun when I was in my 20s. Now it's getting intoxicated with random strangers I don't know and thinking they're too intoxicated to drive and I'd need at minimum to get out of there before they leave. I'd much rather stay at home, watch the ball drop on TV, if I stay up, watch the fireworks from my window or TV, or have a scary movie fest with loved ones. Story 42. Motorcycle track day. I'd done 4 track days with my reasonably priced but fun car, a Focus ST, 2 of which were in the rain, super fun and super terrifying. I'd been riding for 6 years by then and got the opportunity to do a private open track day with only 45 riders for the whole day, no sessions or groups, 7.5 hours of just hop on, hop off track time. I'd done that track time before, Thunderhill in California, and knew the corners decently well, but I was absolutely not prepared for how much faster motorcycles are at hitting the next corner, especially on a motorcycle that has the same power-to-weight ratio of a Koenigsegg Agera RS. With my previous track days, I'd have the mental time to look around, keep my line, prepare for the next corner entry, hit my trail braking, and nicely flow through the corner and transition into the next acceleration. With my motorcycle, a Yamaha FC09, the last year they didn't include any traction control or ABS. It was just a sequence of yee, wide open throttle, holy cow, there's my corner already, no, slow down. Corner after corner after corner. There is zero mental time between corners except that moment of bliss on the one longish straight where I get to actually max out 5th gear and run into the 134 mile per hour speed limiter on my bike halfway through the straight. The acceleration and braking on an open track with essentially nobody else around alone are enough to satisfy a lifetime's worth of adrenaline for me, and getting to drag knee for the first time was also a bucket list item achieved. It was one of the most terrifying moments of my life, but nothing will ever come close to how much perfectly zoned in fun I had that day. Nothing else in the world existed in that moment except for the bike, the track, and those corners. Then, after a couple of years of pandemic, people forgetting how to drive nonsense, I deemed it too risky to continue motorcycling and sold my bike for $200 less than what I paid for it brand new, thanks to supply chain mayhem and seemingly everybody wanting to buy a motorcycle that year. I successfully motorcycled for 8 years without a single incident, and my only speeding ticket I got was for doing a whopping 38 miles per hour on an empty mountain road. I do miss my motorcycle, but I am also happy that I enjoyed that time and am still here with all my parts intact. Story 43. I did cave tubing on a New Zealand trip and didn't think I was claustrophobic before going in, but that experience did, in fact, change my mind. The combination of freezing cold water, darkness, jumping backwards off waterfalls, and fighting your buoyancy against low cave ceilings was brutal, despite it being very safe and well-guided. In all the photos the tour guides took of me, I have a permanent, oh god, what the heck did I get myself into look on my face. That said, I don't regret doing it. I do have some cool memories from it. I'm proud of myself for sticking through it, and it really helped me understand my limits. Story 44. Hiking. I'm not afraid of heights, and climbing up the mountain part was fun, but when it came time to climb down, that was when I found out I have a terrible fear of my clumsy feet slipping on unsteady ground and falling, proceeding to break every single bone in my body. There was a moment my feet didn't stop slipping on a muddy area for 2 seconds, and I broke down crying. Our tour guide had to hold my hand on the way down, but when we finally got back, I saw him laughing with his buddies, not even hiding the fact they were looking at me while they laughed, which was just pure icing on the cake. Never again. At the very least, there's a zipline option of going down. And if any of these stories got to you, here's more for you. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. I'll catch you in that video.